Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Watchtower Examination. My name is Winston. I have never ever been a Jehovah's Witness, and if I were, I would be rather ashamed today. I am a Seventh-day Adventist, and I am ashamed today. I am ashamed that in a church, including the church to which I belong, that members could be engaged in what I consider one of the worst of sins: sexually abusing children. I have this thing about rape that I hate. I've actually prayed and asked the Lord to protect the people I love: my daughter, my wife when I was married, my sister, my female friends that I know personally. Because one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit that I believe I have been given is the ability to forgive. People will do me horrible things, and I will remember that I also let the Lord down several times. And I know that if I am not willing to forgive someone of their sins, the Lord has told me that He is not willing to forgive me of mine. So that unforgiveness threatens your salvation. Because if you are holding up someone in your heart that you will not forgive, then you cannot be forgiven of your sins. But it would pose a major challenge to me if someone I loved was raped. When I left my parents' home, moved out on my own, the first apartment I rented, my landlord lived upstairs. I rented her downstairs apartment. And she had a daughter. She and her daughter lived upstairs. Her daughter was a good friend of mine, and she was like my little sister. And I watched that little girl grow into a young woman. And when she was a teenager, in her 20s actually, in her early 20s, and contemplating marriage, she was in love with a young man from the church. And there was something about that relationship that was just absolutely admirable. She was the epitome of a young girl in love. Man, she loved him. But something happened. One day while we were both at work, well, I was at work, she was at college, the house was broken into. And they stole some small appliances, went inside her room and ranshackled and searching for stuff. And I remember, I am so tempted to call her by name, but I'll try not to. I remember that she said something to me as she cried. Someone broke into her house. She cried, and she said she feels violated. Violated. Someone entered her private space. You know, the very thought that some stranger out there that she does not know was able to go into her private stuff, including her drawers with her underwears, you know, searching through, looking through her documents, searching for stuff. She said she felt violated. She was never hurt. She never saw her, I was about to say attacker. She never saw the person who broke into the house. The police was quick on the matter. They were able to find the perpetrators. The items were restored, at least the small appliances. But she said she felt violated, and I understood it. This very young lady said something to me regarding the subject of rape. And it stuck. Here we are as Christian young people. We do not believe in engaging in sex before marriage. And so here she is in love with a young man. They are contemplating marriage, but they've never had sex. And she's saying to me, can you imagine that I was tempted to call his name. I love my boyfriend so much. She loves him and respects him, a respectable young man. She loved him so much, and she has never given herself to him sexually. She said to me, Winston, can you imagine that a man who I could never respect, a man who I do not know, the kind of man that I would never allow myself to get close to, attacking me and raping me before my boyfriend ever has the chance to make love with me? How could I forgive that person? And I thought about it. Rape is a horrible thing. It is something I feel passionate about. Once I was invited for jury duty. My sister and I invited for jury duty. And there was a case that was reported in our local newspapers about a man, a taxi man, who took a 7-year-old girl into a cane field and raped her. And my imagination tends to run wild. I am there trying to imagine the horror with this little girl. To have a big man on top of her, she cannot manage him. She's looking around, she's crying, she's screaming, and all she's seeing is sugarcane. Abused her. And she is supposed to live with that memory for the rest of her life. An adult doing that to a 7-year-old girl. The day I heard about that incident, I would go to church, I would look at the children, and in my subconscious, I'm looking at them and I'm wondering how many of them are 7. Because I'm trying to picture the evil that that man did. Can you imagine when I went to court and this was the case that I had the opportunity to be a juror on? I was not selected. The lawyer looked at me and said, no, I don't want that guy. That's a good lawyer. That's an attorney who is good at reading personalities. Because I couldn't wait to put him behind bars. However, I know myself. I know that I would weigh the evidence and I would consider the possibility that it is possible that he was not the one. But the point I am making is that somehow the lawyer looked at me and decided not to use me for a juror. My sister, however, was selected to be a juror. Jurors are not allowed to discuss the case. But when the case was finally dismissed in court, my sister told me what happened. And I became angry. The case was dismissed. Every time the little girl comes to court and she sees the man, she broke down. They could not therefore take her witness because her counselors decided that it was too much trauma for her. And so the one witness was not able to testify. Do you know what happened? Case dismissed. No witness. So I suppose you can understand what goes through my mind when I hear about 2-witness rule. And in the next video, I'm going to be rebutting the Watchtower's position on the 2-witness rule. the case was dismissed. And I became freshly angry because that was not justice. They will call it justice because there is a possibility that he was not the man, sorry. But as far as I am concerned, he is the man. Why doesn't the little girl faint when she comes into the court and look on the judge? Why doesn't she faint when she sees the policeman? Why does she break down when she sees him? As far as I'm concerned, guilty. Guilty as charged. So he molested a child and he got away with it. Grieves me. Do you know how many other rapists get away with their crime? As you listen to abused victim after victim, they will tell you that they did not speak about it for a while. Then there are the women who tell you that they want to come forward, but they are scared. They're scared. It is too much. The questions they're going to be asked in court are embarrassing. Not to mention the questions that a woman is going to be asked in a judicial committee comprised of 3 men. 3 men. A woman is raped and 3 men from the Watchtower organization is going to try her. Because that's the amazing thing, because while it should be a trial of the accuser, the victim becomes tried. Did you resist? What were you wearing? These are the kind of questions that I find annoying in court, because I have this philosophy about respecting women. I'm a man. I'm a normal man like any other man out there. I have sexual desires like any man. And when I am making out with my girlfriend, I want to go all the way. Thank God I had the discipline and the conviction at the time that it was a sin to go all the way, so we didn't. Some people will argue that if it was in your mind anyhow, that's for another discussion. But the point I'm making is, ladies and gentlemen, is that I know what it is to be turned on. I know what it is to have sexual desires. I know what it is to want to go all the way. But I have held this position that if a girl goes with me on a date, and if we decide beforehand that we are going to engage in sex, and if we start making out, and I'm getting graphic, and she decides to undress herself, and just before we do it, she says, "Sorry, Winston, I can't do this." Do you know what's going to happen? Nothing is going to happen. Because I believe that a woman's right to say no must be respected. I have never been in a situation like that, and people say it is much easier to talk when you're not in the situation. But I am 100% convinced, based on the respect that I have for women, that if she says no, I probably would be angry that she brought me that far. But the minute she says no, no means no. This is her body. It is her decision whether or not to engage in sex. And I said that just to indicate to you just how annoyed I get when people are asking the woman about how she dressed. In other words, it is not his fault for not controlling himself. It is your fault for turning him on. It is her responsibility. And the only thing more annoying about that line of reasoning is when it comes from a female attorney. This entire sexual abuse thing for me is something that gets me emotionally worked up. Any way you take it. Because some of you may say, Winston, you're talking about the girls. What about the boys? Let me explain this. I am homophobic. I paused because I wonder if I am truly homophobic when you look at the semantics of it. Because homophobia, they say, is an actual fear of or a resentment of homosexuals. I am against violence against any person. I can subscribe to the view that what two persons do in the privacy of their room is their business. So who you want to sleep with is your business. That's no concern of mine. But personally, I am anti-homosexuality. I believe that marriage should be between a man and a woman. I believe that that is God's way. I am a Christian. I believe in God. I place God's way of thinking above yours, and I hope you can understand that. I mention all of that to say how much worse, well, not worse, violation is violation, but for a boy who is not homosexual to be abused by a man, I find all these things. Rape for me is a horrible crime. And as forgiving as I am, I find it easier, believe it or not, to forgive a murderer than it is for me to forgive a rapist. So it is something, I am placing the caveat out there, that is something that gets me emotionally worked up. And so there's a question that I ask myself several times. I have the answer now. I don't ask anymore. But I used to wonder, why do so many men rape? And I came up with the answer. Because they recognize that there's a high probability that they will get away with it. When the woman thinks about the shame, she doesn't want to talk. When she thinks about what she has to go through in court, she doesn't want to talk. I confess, ladies and gentlemen, that I once harbored an unjust thought. When I heard that Mike Tyson was charged for rape, and then people started talking about it is because he's a black man who just rose to fame, they're trying to bring him down. The minute I heard that argument, I say, I hope that he's convicted, even if he was not guilty. And that is an unjust thought. But the thought came to my mind. I dismissed it eventually. But the reason I thought like that is that these are the reasons a Mike Tyson would think to rape someone. And when I say a Mike Tyson, or follow me now, I am not speaking of Mike Tyson himself. I'm speaking now of a black man who just rose to fame and fortune, who would think that I can rape a girl because when she speaks, people are not going to believe her. And she's not going to dare to say that I raped her and run the risk of people thinking that she's telling a lie to get money out of me. Those are among the reasons men rape. The victim is going to be too traumatized. The consequences of speaking about it is going to be too much for the victim. And so I can take the chance to rape her. I give you all that preamble to show you what I mean when I say the Watchtower organization is behaving like rapists. The Australian authority, after the Royal Commission, looking into sexual abuse of children, into many religious organizations, including the Seventh-day Adventist Church, made a recommendation that these organizations should contribute to a redress scheme to compensate the victims. The last time I checked, the Seventh-day Adventist Church agreed to join the scheme. The Watchtower organization, and let me say this. This is not Adventist versus Watchtower. But because I happen to be a Seventh-day Adventist, I need to declare, in fairness, what my position is. Because someone posted a comment that Winston also belongs to this, and suggesting that I should not speak because it happens in my church as well. And I thought to respond to the person, but I said, you know what? Let me not respond. I will allow an impartial juror to respond. And so I am posting a link to a video that was done by Mike and Kim about how the Watchtower organization could take some lessons from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. That link is in the description. Oh boy, I just had another mishap. And my microphone is probably damaged. Well, it's damaged, but I'm not sure if the damage is affecting the actual recording quality, the audio quality. I will not know until I get home and try to edit. I'm hoping indications are it is still working. So the Watchtower has decided we will not join the scheme. I'll be responding to the Watchtower's statement. The religion of Jehovah's Witnesses does not have the institutional settings that the voluntary national redress scheme is designed to cover. Therefore, the Ministry for Families and Social Services has been advised that Jehovah's Witnesses will not join the scheme. Jehovah's Witnesses understand that to date there have been less than 10 applicants to the redress scheme who have referred to the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses. Less than 10 applicants, says the Watchtower. Less than 10 applicants. Let us assume that there was only one applicant. Only one. The Watchtower participated in a commission where they discovered that thousands of victims of sexual abuse are suffering immense pain. And a scheme is being put forward for a number of organizations to come together to make a contribution to a fund that is going to support these victims. These people, these individuals, these human beings who have suffered immense emotional trauma. I will not have anything to do with them unless they were Jehovah's Witnesses, is what the Watchtower is basically saying. I don't give a hoot about those victims who were traumatized by the Catholic Church and the Boy Scout and the Adventist Church and the Presbyterian and the other organizations. I don't care about them. Don't ask me to participate in a scheme that is going to benefit these victims when only one of them was ever a Jehovah's Witness. Because the only individuals who matter are Jehovah's Witnesses. But it gets worse. Let me give you Gary Brew, who I will be responding to in the next video, speaking about the two-witness rule.
Well, it has to do with the apostates. Now, there's something that the apostates are talking about and trying to put forward.
The apostates. The apostates. Do you know who is included among the apostates? Apostates are persons who have been disfellowshipped from the organization or who disassociated themselves from the organization. Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. Do you know who is included in the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses? The victims of child abuse. Already you see the Watchtower's position on them.
Well, apostates are mentally diseased, and they seek to infect others with their disloyal teachings. Jehovah, the great physician, tells us to avoid contact with them.
So these victims start off at a disadvantage. The organization is already against them. And what is the Watchtower saying? We will not contribute to the scheme. We will deal individually with those apostates who claim that they were abused.
For instance, apostates publish lies and distort facts about Jehovah's organization on websites and through television and other media. Those lies are among Satan's burning arrows. How should we respond if someone confronts us with such lies? We reject them. Why? Because we have faith in Jehovah and we trust our brothers. In fact, we avoid all contact with apostates.
What is the Watchtower going to do to them? How is the Watchtower going to treat them? Let me address an earlier statement. Jehovah's Witnesses understand that to date there have been less than 10 applicants to the redress scheme. Jehovah's Witnesses understand? Who are Jehovah's Witnesses? Do Jehovah's Witnesses know about the redress scheme? Do Jehovah's Witnesses know about the Australian Royal Commission? Do Jehovah's Witnesses know that their organization is being asked to contribute to a scheme? Jehovah's Witnesses, I find so disgusting and so annoying the semantics game that this organization plays. Not the governing body is aware. Not the leadership of the organization is aware. Not the Watchtower organization, that would by implication mean the leadership is aware. No, Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses? My brother doesn't know. I guarantee you, and I could prove it to you, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to embarrass him. I'm not going to set him up. But I guarantee that if I were to call a friend of mine, Patrick, and ask him, he would not know. And if I ask his wife, she would not know. And if I ask Elder Anderson, he would not know. And if I ask Opel Campbell, he probably would not know. Jehovah's Witnesses do not know how many persons, they're not even aware of the redress scheme, much more how many persons have applied. This is a disgusting, lying. I find the organization so repulsive to be calling itself, insofar as they believe that Jehovah is God, to be calling themselves God's organization. That has no love for humanity, and that is so inherently dishonest. They know exactly how to word their documents. They write them in such a way as to never implicate themselves. You believe they're stupid? They know what they are doing. They are devious. They are evil. Jehovah's Witnesses have responded and will continue to respond directly to individual claims for redress in a caring, fair, and principled manner, taking into consideration the unique circumstances of each claim. In other words, we will form a judicial committee to respond to everyone who is bold enough to come forward and say someone abused them sexually. And how are we going to deal with it? We are going to get 3 men. I've done a few videos in the past where I very gently touch on this subject. And one of the most disgusting things, I wish I could find the video. And it is sad that I have to search for it, because that should be one of the clips that I keep among my short clips that I refer to frequently. I really should have kept that, so I do not know how to be searching for it. A girl went to some party, or she overnighted with some Jehovah's Witnesses, and she was abused by a little boy. Abuse is abuse, but I feel even more angry when it is a man. But in this case, it was a little boy who abused this little girl. The Watchtower believes that they must settle these matters among themselves. And so they got the 2 parties together. And the principle of forgiveness is what was instituted. How this organization abuses the scriptures. I take these things personal, you see, because I have a daughter, a 10-year-old. And I am a forgiving person. So ask me to forgive the little boy. I can find it in my heart. As angry as I will be, as hurt as I will be. But don't you dare ask my daughter to hug that little boy who raped her. The Watchtower literally put the victim in the arms of the boy who raped her. And that is supposed to be the end of the matter. So when I see this disgusting, infuriating organization talking about we have always responded, that is how they respond. They treat the victims horribly in what they call fairness. Do you know what they consider fairness? It would be unfair to convict a man without 2 witnesses. I'll respond to that in the next video. So when the organization is using their nice words to respond to the Australian government, very nice words, we treat them in a fair manner. have mercy. So the organization is giving themselves a nice get out of jail, out of penalty excuse. We will not contribute to the scheme. You have less than 10 persons who claimed, 10 apostates who claimed that they were abused. Send them to us and let us deal with them individually. And let us see how many of them will have the courage, after all that they have been through, to extend it by daring to come to us individually. The Watchtower is using the same assumption that rapists use. The victims will dare not try to seek redress. It is too much for them to seek redress. And so men will continue to rape women and rape little boys, and women who rape little boys, or whatever the cases were. Adults will continue to abuse children because there is a very high probability that they will not talk. There's a very high probability that even if they talk, the consequences are going to be so grave that many of them will quit before. The same attitude that this organization has. I was planning to read the entire statement and respond to all of it. But this video is already long. I want to respond to the video that was done reporting on the matter.
Welcome back to the Sunday Project. Well, June 30 is the federal government's deadline for institutions to join the National Redress Scheme proposed by the Royal Commission into Child Sexual Abuse. It allows survivors to seek an apology and compensation without going through the courts. Tonight, we can reveal that the scheme has suffered a major rejection from the Jehovah's Witnesses, whose church was heavily criticised in the Commission. In November, 50,000 Jehovah's Witnesses gathered in Melbourne for their international convention. But outside the stadium, former members were demanding answers from Australian church leader Terence O'Brien.
4 people in my family were abused as children. Why are you letting it happen?
So what are you saying?
Why are you letting this happen to children? It's worse than the Catholics.
You are a leader of the organization in Australia. There are cameras rolling. A lady is publicly saying that victims of her family have been abused. She made the statement, "You are worse than the Catholics." And he treats her with total disdain. She's not there. I will not respond to you. What would it take to say to her, "Can you see me in my office? May I have your telephone number? Can we talk? This is not the forum. I am very busy right now. We are involved in a convention. I'm going to have to speak, or I really wish I could speak with you now." A human being is speaking with you. You call yourself a Christian. A human being, a fellow person, is speaking to you about how your organization has caused them hurt. And you cannot respond. You do not see a difference between how this man is behaving and how politicians behave when reporters are trying to ask them questions. As a matter of fact, more often than not, the politician responds. They acknowledge the reporter. And when they do not, many of them say, "No comment at this time." And these people dare to use the phrase reproach on Jehovah's name?
Despite the impressive turnout at the footy stadium, there are fewer than 70,000 Jehovah's Witnesses in Australia. Yet their own records show there have been more than 1,800 victims of child sexual abuse involving 106 members or associates of the church.
Their own record shows that 2.57% of their members have been abused as children. That is a much larger percentage of anointed among them. Much larger. They have way less than 1% of their membership as anointed. In other words, you are far more likely to be abused as a child, as a Jehovah's Witness, than you are to be anointed with the Holy Spirit. Have mercy. Let me say that again. Let it sink in, Jehovah's Witnesses. You are much more likely to be abused as a child in the Watchtower organization than to be anointed with the Holy Spirit. What does that say about your organization? Their own records show that they have over 1,800 victims of, or let me say 1,800, let me not go over, 1,800 victims of child abuse in Australia. But you are so happy that you can report that less than 10 of them had the courage to come forward. Less than 10%. I'm sorry, less than 10 of them. Less than 10% had the courage to come forward. And we will not join a scheme that is going to come together with others to compensate them. Let them take us to court if they dare. We will deal with them.
And the Jehovah's Witnesses didn't see fit to refer one of those cases to the police. The Royal Commission, which wrapped up 3 years ago, thought 514 alleged abusers within this small church were worthy of police investigation. Stephen Unthank grew up as a Jehovah's Witness in Victoria's Gippsland area. He's been fighting for some kind of justice for 40 years.
I was 12. My abuser was an elder. He rose through the ranks in Australia to become one of the leaders in Australia. Straight after the abuse, within the first week, my local body of elders wanted to meet with me. I thought that they knew about it and they were going to help me. I hadn't told anybody at that point. Unfortunately, it wasn't about that. I had been accused of smoking cigarettes. That night, I received a whipping from my father, and that was really painful because I was still sore from it.
Now, let us make some assumptions. Let us first assume that you are a human being. And you heard this story of this gentleman. By the way, I want to applaud him for the courage it must have taken to tell his story. But you are a human being and you heard this story of this gentleman. Would you be moved by compassion? Has the governing body ever read the stories about Jesus being moved with compassion and wanting to help? Do they have that sort of humanity inside of them? Do they have that sort of what does it take? What does it require for you to have compassion on someone else? What would it hurt the Watchtower organization if they said, we are going to contribute to this scheme to help other people, to help this man? He just wants closure from the years of emotional trauma. He just wants closure. And when I read this, when I watch this rather, and I think of the governing body members telling Jehovah's Witnesses how they love them, it angers me. We love you so much until the day you get raped and have the courage to tell someone, and you don't have two witnesses, and you decide to take action, and so we have to disfellowship you. We love you so much until that happens to you.
When elders do investigate, they insist on evidence from two witnesses before finding the case proven. The Royal Commission said this showed a serious lack of understanding of the nature of child sexual abuse.
I am sorry, that is not true. That would be the indication that if the organization were sincere. It would mean that their problem is they really don't understand the nature of child sexual abuse. They understand. Every idiot knows that nobody is going to rape a child with two witnesses. They know that. They understand the nature of child sexual abuse. And who's going to understand the nature of child sexual abuse more than an organization that has many abusers and have listened to many cases? They understand the nature of child sexual abuse. The problem is they are trying to protect their bottom line. They are trying to save money. They are trying to avoid paying compensation to people. Because if people were to take these matters to the law, then the organization is likely to be sued. And it's going to be a reproach on Jehovah's name. And if it goes out there that we belong to an organization where it is likely for your child to be abused, then chances are we will not grow at the rate at which we are growing when they were growing. And so we will not have so much more in contributions coming to us. Mike and Kim played a video that I thought was interesting. And I'm going to, from the Watchtower, look at this.
Our group provides information to people who want to name Watchtower on their estate planning documents, perhaps as a beneficiary and retirement account, insurance policy, bank account. We also get calls from attorneys and executors telling us about a new estate. We generally have about 300 open estate files that we're working on.
Yeah, that is quite a bit. Now, we know you also get a lot of phone calls every week. Can you give us an idea of the volume there?
It's only an estimate, but it's at least 100 calls a week. Many of them are simple. How to name a Watchtower as the beneficiary. They're interested in donating real property. Sometimes we get a nice surprise on one of the calls.
A surprise? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
For example, we got a call from a brother. The voice sounded a little bit feeble, somewhat elderly. He asked about a specific donation arrangement, and the sister told him, brother, you have to understand that the minimum for this is $5,000. There was a pause, and he said, well, I'll be putting in $1 million.
That's a very kind gesture on the brother's part. Now, of course, you get these phone calls. Are you always able to answer all the questions over the phone?
Usually, but sometimes there's unusual circumstances. For example, last year in April, a brother who's 99 years old donated stock as an outright gift. It was $23 million worth of stock.
I am sorry. Please don't ask us to give away this that we're getting to apostates. We can't do that. Because if we do that, you're going to encourage more apostates to come forward. Is that what you want us to do? I am sorry, we have to protect our bottom line.
You see, if someone who comes to you and says, I was sexually abused, but because there's no two witnesses, you don't accept it. You don't make that finding. They're left in a very difficult position, aren't they?
We don't disbelieve a person who makes an accusation. That's why we investigate every accusation brought forth by the elders.
Yes, but if there's not two witnesses, you don't accept it, do you?
Because scripturally we're not able.
The love of money is said to be the root of all kinds of evil. I say to you that the twisting of the scriptures, the misunderstanding of the scriptures, the misapplication of the scriptures is the root of all of the Watchtower's evils. Do you realize what they're pivoting to? The scriptures. Scripturally, we're not allowed to do that. So it is God who is to be credited for our two-witness rule policy. It is the Bible that we are following. Ladies and gentlemen, have you seriously pondered why so many who leave the Watchtower organization become atheists and agnostics? There's Pastor Dale Ratzlaff, who used to be a Seventh-day Adventist pastor. He has left the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Is he an atheist? No. He is out there on a mission trying to tell people that the message of the Seventh-day Adventist Church is not the true gospel. And he's saying, this is the true gospel. This is what the Lord is saying. He left the Adventist Church, but he doesn't become an atheist. I left the Baptist Church. I did not become an atheist. Gerrit Lush left the Catholic Church. He did not become an agnostic. Why is it that people who leave the Watchtower organization more often than not stop believing in religion, stop believing in God, stop believing in the scriptures? Why? Because the Bible is made to be the root of the Watchtower's evils. It is because of the Bible why you should shun your relatives. It is because of the Bible why you should not take blood transfusions. It is because of the Bible why you mustn't celebrate holidays. It is because of the Bible why you have the two-witness rule. It is because of the Bible why you have all the unholy Watchtower beliefs. They're twisting of the scriptures. And as I said, I will be responding in the next video to their scriptural position on the two-witness rule. But it is so sad that all these evils of this organization is being laid on God and on the scriptures.
This is an organisation that is based on secrecy and isolation. So it's an organisation that sees themselves separate to the laws.
As a lawyer, Lisa Flynn has represented many survivors of sexual abuse at the hands of the churches.
They don't actively report crimes that they have become aware of to police or any other secular authorities. They have their own internal mechanisms to deal with things such as child sexual abuse, and these mechanisms completely fail victims.
I would have been seven roughly, I would say.
Simon Philpott lives in Yass, not far from Canberra, with his mum Rita.
So I went into the bedroom, into Simon's bedroom, and I noticed this boy, this teenager with Simon, in Simon's room with the door shut and the curtains drawn.
When the elders became aware of what had happened, two of them paid Rita a visit.
Remember, my dear sister, gossip is like a pillow with feathers in it. Once you break it open, you can never get all the feathers back in again.
Get it? Bible principles. It is not, here sister, this is what we're going to do for you. It is the Bible principle on gossip. 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 A girl is abused, and you are talking to her about gossip. She is now going to become the sinner. She's going to become the gossiper. She is going to become the evil one. Do you understand, ladies and gentlemen, spiritual things are spiritually discerned. The Watchtower organization, Satan's organization, is doing a fast one on God. Is doing a fast one on religion. They are a reproach to God. They are a reproach to Christianity. They are a reproach to religion. Don't get me wrong, folks. There are so many things that have happened, terrible things, in the name of religion that turns people off. I was watching a video by XJW Analyzer. I have not finished watching it, where he is explaining why he is no longer a Christian, quote unquote. But he cited something that Gandhi said, and it is profound. That I like your Christ, but I don't like your Christians. And so Satan, in his craft, is making religion look evil, making the Bible look evil, making God himself look evil. Because when people look at this, I can imagine someone saying, as I would have said had I not known God for myself, if this is Christianity and if this is religion, I want nothing to do with it. This organization, someone told me that I must be careful of my strong language. I make no apologies when I say this organization is behaving just like rapists. And the only apology that I would make, the only retraction I would make, is that they are worse than rapists. Because rapists are seeking to satisfy their evil sexual desires. This organization is destroying lives and actually doing things in such a way that will redound to people losing their very salvation. Evil. And this is what I mean when I say this organization is being led by Satan. Do you believe any body, any man being led by Christ would not be moved by compassion as Jesus was to do something for the victims? Think about it.
There was no real, what can we do to help you and your family with Simon? What can we offer you? There was none of that. It was just, okay, we're going to sort it out. We'll go and talk to the person and you must keep quiet. Do not talk to anyone about this.
Instead, Rita went to the police.
Well, that made them very unhappy because now they were being spoken to by the police. And I was not supposed to talk to anyone. Not that they ever said don't talk to the police, but just don't tell anybody. They had to get rid of me. They would tell you otherwise, but disfellowshipping is a great way to silence people. Because if you're disfellowshipped, the faithful brothers and sisters will not talk to you. And anything you say will be questioned anyway because you've left Jehovah.
He or she can choose to be no longer an active member of the congregation.
Understand that? Well, it's a pretty cruel way of dealing with someone, isn't it, who has suffered sexual abuse.
I could only repeat what I've said, Your Honour.
No, but it's cruel, isn't it? To take away, by reason of the rules that you impose, all of their social structure. That's cruel.
Why is it that someone can recognize the cruelty of disfellowshipping and shunning, but Jehovah's Witnesses cannot? Why? It is visibly clear to anyone, any non-Jehovah's Witness who looks at the video that the Watchtower put forward of Sonia Erickson calling her mom, the mom looking on the phone, seeing that it is her daughter, and puts the phone down. Anybody out there looking on that will see the evil of it. Will a Jehovah's Witness? How many Jehovah's Witnesses do you believe right now that if you tell them about an apostate, someone who was disfellowshipped, who is claiming that they were raped, how many Jehovah's Witnesses do you believe would sincerely express sympathy, anger for that victim? You see, you silence them. You do not only silence them, you also make them villains. You turn them into the bad guy. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mary Jane is raped. Mary Jane reports it to the police. Mary Jane is taken to a judicial committee, 3 men. They decide that there were not 2 witnesses, so we cannot convict this person. We can't do anything. Mary Jane, on account of reporting the matter to the police, is accused of bringing reproach on Jehovah's name. But let me give Mary Jane a different name. Let me not call her Mary Jane. Let me call her Sonia Erickson. And so, on account of reporting to the police, Sonia Erickson reporting the matter of her rape to the police, Sonia Erickson is disfellowshipped. This is what you, as a Jehovah's Witness, will hear.
Sonia Erickson has been disfellowshipped.
You have no idea what the matter is. All you know, for all you know, Sonia Erickson committed a sexual crime, a sexual sin rather, and so she is disfellowshipped. For all you know, it's all left up to speculation. But Sonia Erickson, in your eyes, is no longer a good Christian, is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. The evil is so deep.
Last year, the Prime Minister directly addressed the institutions who had not joined the National Redress Scheme.
All they're doing in not joining this is doubling down on the crimes and doubling down on the hurt. And so to them I say, who have not joined, join. Do the decent thing. Do the right thing. Do the honourable thing.
But this latest news will come as a shock to the Prime Minister and abuse survivors. In response to our inquiries, the Jehovah's Witnesses Australasia gave the project this statement. The religion of Jehovah's Witnesses does not have...
All right, and now we are back to the statement. There is something that I heard that I am so hoping is true. I heard that what the state is considering is to strip these organizations of their charity status. And that is music to my ears. Because what the organization is doing, it is rather interesting that I got wind of letters that were sent to elders in some churches, some kingdom halls in England. And it's all about merging kingdom halls with one particular charity. They know what they're doing. And I want to lift my hat off to Mike and Kim. I want to congratulate you guys for doing something marvelous. I've always said it that when it comes on to the internal things, I look to the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses because I have never been a Jehovah's Witness. So I don't understand the inner workings of the organization. And so I listen to these people. And Mike and Kim, in collaboration with someone else has been doing this property tracker. And I was so proud to learn that the Australian authorities actually used their resource. And that is why the Watchtower's response to the state is not just that they would not join the redress scheme, but they also responded in their response. You see the link below for the full statement. They are also responding about the sale of their properties. They're actually trying to do damage control. And so I say the news is not all bad, because the Watchtower believes that it can act, but the Australian government can act. But then, do you know what is sad? That when the Australian government acts, the same organization that is saying that Jehovah's Witnesses are aware that there are only 10 people, knowing that Jehovah's Witnesses are in the dark, don't have a clue what's going on, totally ignorant of the issues. They are now going to tell those Jehovah's Witnesses, oh, you are being persecuted, and stay strong and be loyal to Jehovah, because Jesus told us that people are going to hate us on account of his name. When we do not go with Jesus' name, we go with the name Jehovah, and you are such a reproach to that name. Ladies and gentlemen, I could go on and on and on, but this has been a lengthy video. I'm going to now go to the next video where I respond directly to the Watchtower's position about the two-witness rule.
May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.